Hello. Great. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a very distinguished panel for you. These three gentlemen have one thing in common. None of them have jet lag, which is pretty amazing. Let me introduce them to you. Dr. Stephen Lockley is a professor at Harvard Medical School. He's also the co-founder of Timeshifter. He's been studying circadian science for 20 years, working with NASA, Formula One, and global CEOs. Mickey Beyer-Clausen is the co-founder of Timeshifter. He is a serial entrepreneur and has successfully started and sold a few companies. And Mike Massimino is our former astronaut. He has had 4 spacewalks, and he has fixed the Hubble telescope twice. I don't know what went wrong the first time, Mike, but
it's wear and tear, normal wear and tear.
All right, they sent you back up. So we're here to educate you a little bit on jet lag. Stephen, why don't we start with you? You've been studying circadian neuroscience for 20 years. Can you tell us a little bit about the research that you've done and how it played into this new company?
So when we learned to jet travel, when we invented jet travel, we also gave ourselves a new problem, which is jet lag, or jet lag disorder as it's known clinically. And jet lag is caused by our body clocks not being able to catch up with the speed at which we travel. And so when we travel across many time zones very quickly, our body clocks get stuck in the old time zone. It can't quite keep up. And we've evolved to shift by a few minutes a day in response to seasonal changes in light and dark, but we're not very good at shifting large amounts every day. And so when we do those big flights across the planet, our body clocks can't keep up, and we end up with the symptoms of jet lag, which is sleepiness, insomnia, and often other disorders of metabolism, eating, and so on. Now, the key time cue that our body clock uses to reset is the light and dark cycle. Light, and particularly blue light, which so everyone in the audience is getting an alerting stimulus with that blue light. And so if we time light properly and time light avoidance or dark properly, we can shift the body clock much more quickly. So instead of shifting by up to an hour a day, which you would do if you just did it yourself and didn't really know what you were doing, we can shift the body clock 3 times quicker than that, by about 3 or 4 hours a day, so we can get you much more quickly to that new time zone. And so jet lag is caused because the light-dark cycle gets out of sync, but we can use light and dark then to reset the clock more quickly if we time it properly, and it really is all about timing.
And you've been working with top athletes, top CEOs for a long time. It's kind of been like a secret, I guess, maybe in the industry.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about who you've worked with and how it's helped them?
Yeah, so this work really came out of some collaborations with NASA, with a colleague of ours, Dr. Smith Johnson, who's the flight surgeon who heads the fatigue program at NASA Johnson Space Center. And for about the past 10 years or so, we've been using an algorithm to time light and time dark, but other aspects like melatonin use or caffeine, to help the astronauts fly when they travel from Houston to Tokyo or Cologne or Moscow for training, because the astronauts have to hit the ground running. Their training program is very closely monitored, and so they can't afford to be out for 2 weeks when they fly to Moscow. And so we've been doing that for about 10 years with that program. And then I've been working with Hints of Performance and other colleagues to provide these services to Formula One drivers, to Formula One teams, and to top CEOs. And then over the past 2 years, we've developed that algorithm into Timeshifter, into the app, and which gives you then that same benefits from an app that you can carry with you on your phone. And so we've been using this for about 10 years or more with very elite individuals who really have to perform the minute they get to their destination.
So speaking of performance and space, Mike, you've been there a few times. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit, please, about your trips to the Hubble, and how did kind of circadian science play a role in that at all?
Yeah, sure. So as an astronaut, you dream about being an astronaut, and then you are lucky enough to get chosen to be one, and then you train, and then you get assigned to a flight. And you get all this training and this responsibility, and it's a dream come true, and it's an important job. But you need to be healthy and awake when you do it. And and your performance is going to be affected by your nutrition, by your physical condition, but also by your sleep. And so these things become very important to you so you can be at your best. And it's just like, it's not really any different than any other job that we have. We will want to be at our best. And sleep is important, but you also have to, at times, travel and arrive and be ready to go. And that is the ultimate thing in space. You're traveling quite a distance. You're doing something that is very important, that you're passionate about, and you have that responsibility, and so you want to be well rested. So Smith Johnston was my flight surgeon, a very good friend of mine who's in the audience here, a NASA doctor, and he was our flight surgeon for our first flight and put together our sleep shifting plan. My first flight to Hubble, when you're going there, you don't have a choice of times necessarily to go. There's only one time slot per day. It's like you want to go, you hopefully had a couple choices on how to travel to Lisbon, right? A couple flights maybe. But no, and they tell you what day you're going to go, and during that day, there's only a certain window of time that you can get from our planet to whatever that target is, if it's the space station or in our case, the Hubble. And that time moves, it shifts each day. And you want to be launched toward the end of your day so that you arrive in space, you prepare, get ready, arrive, and then you do some things and you get a good night's rest. So you can't always launch at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. That's ideal, but you can't always do that. In my first flight, we were launching at 6 a.m., which meant we were getting woken up 9 hours prior, which is 9 p.m. And that's not the normal time to wake up to go to work for us. We generally work during the day with our training schedule, so we had to go through this shift. So that was my first introduction to it. And we did things like when we were in crew quarters, we had different lights. You mentioned the different color lights to help. Right. You shift little by little. You can take sleep medication to help, things like melatonin. If you're drinking coffee, if you're a coffee drinker, there's a time to do that and a time not to do that. And little by little, you shift. Or sometimes in a hurry, you shift, but you're ready to go, and you have to follow that plan. And that's why I was thrilled to see that Timeshifter was now taking that plan that I was used to as an astronaut, where a lot of these smart people like Smith put it together for me. I don't know where to begin to do that. It's not as easy as you think, but it's great to have this app now that I've used for the past few months when I use it to travel here, and it's absolutely fantastic. It gives you that plan so that you're ready to go when you arrive.
So Mickey, you've really created an app that is actually an astronaut plan. So you're basically giving everyone here an astronaut plan. That's pretty cool. So you're working with these guys now. You've started this company. Tell us a little bit about the app and kind of why you felt the market needed this.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, Timeshifter is a company building a platform for circadian shifting with an initial focus on jet lag. The jet lag app, the Timeshifter jet lag app, we launched that about 5 months ago now, and is really applying what Dr. Lockley talked about before to give each of us a highly personalized plan based on some different inputs, some different data relating to you and your flight. And so it's really exciting because so many people, there are hundreds of millions of people every year traveling internationally, and many of them struggle with jet lag. And so for us to be able to deliver a tool that's actually effective and not based on misconceptions and myths, but is based on science, is super exciting. In fact, I think the exciting part here is, having access to the kind of knowledge and expertise that Dr. Lockley brings to the table, and Mike, how he has applied it as an astronaut. It's exciting how to be part of taking that and converting it into a super user, friendly experience in an app. So certainly not a gimmick, a very effective tool. Very, very excited and honored to be working with guys like Mike and Dr. Lockley.
So Dr. Lockley, can you tell us a little bit more specifically about how the app works? Because it seems very intuitive and kind of easy to use. Right. Maybe too easy to use, but...
So we've known for about 30 or 40 years how to start shifting the clock, particularly with light. And so, as I said earlier, light is the key environmental time cue that resets our clock every day. If we don't get the right light-dark cycle, our clocks get very quickly desynchronized. And we know that because for a lot of my career, I've studied the impact of blindness on circadian rhythms, and people who don't have eyes or don't have light perception are unable to synchronize their clock to 24 hours. So light and light avoidance is key, and so that's the central plank of the algorithm. But we also do other things, for example, using melatonin. As Mike said, melatonin can help shift the clock as well, not quite as well as light, but it is a chronobiotic. It does shift the clock. And so we can take melatonin at the right time to help reset us. It also helps us to sleep at the wrong time of day, which sounds unusual, but if you are flying to Japan, for example, and need to sleep in the equivalent of the daytime here, then melatonin will help you do that. We also give advice on caffeine, and there's a trick to using caffeine, which is little and often, and knowing the right time to use it. And we also use naps to try and avoid a big build-up in sleep, or to prepare you for a time where we know you're going to be asleep. And we also have a few other levels of personalization. So we ask you if you want to start pre-adapting before you leave, so you can start to get on the new time zone before you go. And we also ask for your natural sleep pattern and the number of hours you want to sleep, so it really is personalized to you and your preferences. And what's very different about this, it's really based in years of circadian research, circadian neuroscience, but it isn't quite as intuitive as people think. You'll often read in the magazines, in the flight magazines, well, just get on the new time zone as quickly as you can. Just set your watch to Lisbon and start to act like you've been living in Lisbon. And that's often not the right advice, because sometimes you'll see light at the wrong time of day, which will shift your clock in the wrong direction. And so those of you who flew from say, the east coast of the US or even the west coast, landed in Europe in the morning and saw light straight away, are shifting your clocks to California. You're not adapting to Lisbon time.
No.
And so it really is about knowing what to do at the right time, when to see light, when to avoid light, when to use melatonin, and so on. And then the other aspects support that individualization of the plan. But we know if we get it right, if we do the right things, we can shift your clock for about 3 to 4 hours a day. And so you can very quickly get on the new time zone and feel ready to perform.
And Mickey, there are, the industry now is taking notice, right? The sleep revolution is happening. Everyone's talking about circadian sleep. You guys are obviously early adopters. But can you tell us a little bit about what the industry has been doing? I know Airbus has new lighting. There's a conversation going on. What's the feedback? What have you seen?
Yeah, no, I think over the past 10 years, I've been focusing on mental performance, well-being, from mindfulness and sleep, and now also as it relates to the circadian rhythm and jet lag. It's really exciting to have been part of sleep becoming, a priority to people and companies and insurance companies and in sports for that matter. We're seeing a real move now. So it's now on the agenda. People are excited about it. I think, as it relates to starting a business, this is a great time to do it, to do what we're doing, because had we done that 5 or 10 years ago, it would have been more difficult, just because we now have a real interest from people in this, and they're looking for solutions. And science have the answers. I also think that, a few things have to come together in order for us to be able to do something like this. Number one is the science have to emerge, has to be there. And then secondly, you need people like, NASA and Formula One. You need some early adopters that are showing the way and saying, let's apply this and try it out and show how it works. And now that's happened. And then we all have cell phones. Not everybody, but a lot of people have cell phones, certainly the people that travel. So now we have a vehicle, we have a way to bring it out to people in a very highly personalized way.
Great. Mike, I have a question. It seems that everything great comes out of NASA, obviously. You've probably been around cutting edge technologies, for the last 20 years. So why aren't all astronauts tech investors? Why aren't all astronauts billionaires?
Oh, we're government employees. Yeah, we get paid regular civil servant pay. I'm no longer with the government, so I don't have those restrictions any longer. But no, we get paid. We get paid well, but we're regular. We don't get any. We didn't get any overtime. We didn't get hazardous duty pay either, which I found kind of interesting. But we're very happy to do the job. We don't do it for the money. And we're concentrating, I think, maybe the reason is we're concentrating heavily on our jobs. And you don't have that many resources necessarily to do a lot of investing, but some of us dabble a little bit here and there. We do get paid a little extra to fly in space, though, because we travel orders when we travel places, and it was from Kennedy Space Center, Florida, to low Earth orbit and return. And I was very happy to see the return part. And we got lodging was provided, meals were provided. But we had incidental expense of like $2.34 per day that they could not zero out. So that was our extra pay. But that's not enough to really invest that much in anything. Yeah. But no, we enjoy our jobs. And I think what you're saying, what comes out of NASA, I think what's very gratifying about this product that's being developed here is that it comes from a lot of the lessons we learned at NASA. And it's funny you're saying some of the ideas that people tell you, how do you do this, and it's a lot of it is made up hearsay of people saying, well, this works for me, or drink this, or drink that, or take a nap upside down, or whatever. People have got all these home remedies that are a bit nutty, I think, for lots of things. And it's very interesting now in the age we are where we can collect data and study things and have apps that can help us where you can apply the math, the science, the methods behind it and come up with an answer. And sometimes it's different than what you would expect. If it was easy to figure out how to sleep shift, then none of us would ever be jet lagged. But without a tool like this, you're kind of guessing of what you need. And I think it's much better, and what we found at NASA, it's much better to use data to help you make those informed decisions. And I think it's great that this is something that was at a necessity for us to keep astronauts awake while they're doing their job. Now it's turned into something that I can use in my travel now, and not as an astronaut. And I was telling these guys earlier that the first time I used Timeshifter was back in May. I had a trip to Montenegro, and I got back, and I arrived just in time for a family function. Everyone was kind of waiting for me to arrive at this thing, and I got there, and my sister and my sister-in-law were talking to me, and I was like, "What's the matter?" Like, we can't believe that you just come off an airplane from Europe, and you seem wide awake. And I was like, Timeshifter. And I sent Mickey the note. So that I think is the best testament to it, that there really is a science behind it, that these people have studied, Steve and Smith and people at NASA, and they did it because we had that need to be able to get to space and be alert in case there's an emergency. You have to be alert. You can't be not feeling well because you're jet lagged. You have to be alert. And so it was a necessity, and now it's turned into something that I think is just as much a necessity for the world we live in now as we travel so much across time zones so frequently.
So, Mickey, how are you getting this in the hands of consumers? Or what kind of partnerships have you looked at in order to really kind of get this out into the world?
Yeah, so rather than putting it out in the App Store and expecting everyone will find it, we apply this B2B2C model where we go out and partner with strategic partners in the travel industry. And even here, I have an example. We did a partnership with Montblanc, so the new Montblanc watch, the Summit 2 watch, came out a few weeks ago, where Timeshifter was pre-installed and on the watch face itself, making it really, really easy to use. But we go out and partner to find the people that need the product, essentially. So it's hotels, it's airlines. We partner with Under Armour as it relates to elite athletes, Montblanc as it relates to business travelers, Six Senses Resorts and Hotels, a great partner that are now offering Timeshifter jet lag plans to every one of their guests visiting their resorts around the world. So that's the way we get out there. And we also partnered recently with Amadeus, sort of the booking system behind all booking systems in the travel industry. So when you book a ticket with an airline, chances are it's Amadeus underneath. Or when you book it with a travel agency, chances are that it's Amadeus under it. And so working with partners like that, it really helps a startup like ours to get out to millions of people, and that's how we do it.
Great. And Stephen, Dr. Lockley. Can you tell us what have been some of the new advances, kind of what has kind of come around in the last just few years as this circadian science has heated up?
So you're starting to hear more about circadian rhythms and circadian medicine, and a good example of that was last year's 2017 Nobel Prize for Medicine winners were 3 circadian rhythm researchers who discovered some of the genetic basis of our rhythms back in the 1980s. And so the idea of circadian medicine, where we measure your internal clock, or we model your internal clock, and then everything is timed to that rather than clock time. And so a good example would be how to time your medications. We all get given our medications at the same time, 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. or before a meal or whenever the doctor says, but we have a 5, 6, 7, 8 hour range in the difference between our circadian clock time, even without jet lag. And so knowing your internal time means you can give what has been termed chronotherapeutics, where you time your drugs at the right time for you, which is different from someone else. And we've even started to think also about chronodiagnostics, where a blood sample that may be taken again at 8 a.m. in the morning might be interpreted differently based on your timing of your clock compared to my clock.
Wow.
And so this concept of circadian medicine, as we learn to measure the clock, and there are many groups working on how to measure the clock from biomarkers, will allow us to estimate your personal time and really make medicine truly personalized, because it will be based on your internal clock system. And so all of your diagnoses, all of your treatments will be based on that internal clock. And Timeshifter is really the first example of a personalized circadian tool that estimates and models your timing and then gives you light or dark or melatonin or other solutions to try and shift your clock quickly with jet lag. But really, this is just the start. You can apply this very same principle to peak performance in the daytime, to shift work, to clinical disorders, as well as just making sure that you get the right diagnosis and the right drug. And so circadian rhythms are going to become more and more important in the next 5 to 10 years as we have easier ways to measure the clock, and then we're going to find this explosion in circadian medicine where time really is important. And so watch this space.
Wow. So we have time for one more question. And so I don't know if you know this, but Mike Massimino was the first man to tweet from space. Very exciting. So I just wanted to ask you, Mike, where were you when you tweeted, and what did you tweet?
Well, I was on the space shuttle, and so what I tweeted, I didn't really think too much about it. I'd met Neil Armstrong when I was a new astronaut, and asked him when he thought about what he said on the moon, when one small step for man, one giant leap for man. He said he didn't think about that until after he landed, and that the reason is that you take care of business first, and you worry about the PR later. And I don't know if that was great advice, because I was like, okay, I'm not going to worry about this till I get to space. And then we got there, and then I had to come up with something. And so I wrote, launch was awesome, the adventure of a lifetime has begun, and so on. And about a week later, I launched on a Monday. On Saturday, they made fun of me on Saturday Night Live, a program in America. And I'm in space, I had no idea. But what they said was, we have the first tweet from space, and here it is, launch was awesome. In 40 years, we've gone from one giant leap for mankind to launch was awesome. If we ever find life in the universe, this is how we'll be notified. And it shows like my little Twitter thing, and it says, geez, dudes, aliens. So I probably should have thought about it a little bit more, but it was the beginning of social media back then. So
Still,
that's
congratulations. All right, Thank you all for joining us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Respect.